Glue Wednesday. You see, it's my belief that we don't have to get over. We need to find ways to keep it together. And my glue is G-L-U-E. God's love undoes everything. Because that's what keeps it together. That life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of each puzzle in your family, social, or business relationships. Yet, no matter what size puzzle piece you think you are, without you, the puzzle is labeled as incomplete. You know, a lot of people use the cliche hump day to define their definition of what they think Wednesday has to do with the week. Well, one, I think that hump has the connotation of the need to get over. And two, Wednesday is not the middle of the week for everybody, especially not the work week. Though it is the actual middle of the 7-day cycle that keeps the new week together as well as the weekend, brings them together. And that's why I call it Glue Wednesday. And my glue is G-L-U-E. God's love undoes everything. Not that it tears things apart, but that his love brings things together. Thus, I will use this broadcast to talk about the fact that we don't need to get over. We need to keep it together. And I will be using the life lesson that life is about going from one puzzle to the next. No matter which size of piece of the puzzle you think you are, without you, the puzzle is incomplete. So as you go through your family, your social, and your business relationships, you'll find that you are an important piece of the puzzle. Welcome to Glue Wednesday. This is Sporty King. My topic today is going to be stuff. S-T-U-F-F. Stuff. I call it situations that unleash our focus and faith. I'll be coming to you from my book, Stuff Happens. And what I'll do with this broadcast is give you some of the lessons, the strategies, and some of the insight on how you can help yourself get through life and get through some of those challenging situations. So I'll be reading from it and then referencing what I'm talking about. So let's start out with my little rant about stuff happens. I don't know if you know, but we've all got stuff and have been through some stuff before. Good stuff, bad stuff, fun and sad stuff. Old stuff, new stuff, black and blue stuff. Sometimes lying to you stuff. Your stuff, my stuff, our stuff, their stuff, whose stuff, and whose stuff. Soft and rough stuff. Mild, easy, and tough stuff. And the truth is that it's usually hard stuff. The joy is its testimonial stuff, and it happens. You see, the stuff I'm talking about are the S-T-U-F-F, situations that unleash our focus and faith. This book is it's broken into 4 chapters, okay? 4 situations in my life that could apply to yours. The first one is life. It's called Dealing with Life, and it's actually dealing with death. It's about my mother's dying and how when she died, that changed how I looked at life. The second one is going to be talking about dealing with parenting. I'm not a parent. I'm uncle of the year, uncle of the moment, uncle of the century, uncle of the decade, but we don't have that much time on the show. Uncle is the title that I'm most proud of, no matter what title you see behind my name. But it's not about parenting children. It's about how I had to parent adults. The third one is dealing with passion. Dealing with passion, because now I've been in my speaking business for 24 years, and they call it stepping out on faith when you deal with your passion, when you become an entrepreneur. So I'll be talking about dealing with that. And the last one, dealing with change. A lot of people say they don't like change, but the truth is we love change. All we have to do sometimes is reword it and put an L-L-E in the middle. You think C-H-A-N, C-H-A-N-G-E is change. C-H-A-L-L-E N-G-E is challenge. And so change is just challenge with an L-L-E in the middle. And that L-L-E is the life learning experiences. And that equates to the stuff. So I'm going to give you the stuff from my mother's dying. Living that type, and I'm going to read somewhat out of context. Yes, of course, to force you to buy the book, you got to get the other parts to go with it. But you want to get the lessons because it's the lessons that make the difference. Living that type of lie has crippled the psychological development of many a young man and woman. And both of my parents were major non-supporters of liars. Ricky used to say, you lie to those you fear, and you should fear no man. That's a tough one to live by. And I've told my share of lies, but it's a principle of manhood that I value and one that I've embraced as a testament to my right to call myself a man. How do you define yourself? Sometimes we don't take enough time to do that. It's my firm belief that each of us must spend ample time putting our personal concerns as primary to living our lives and our purpose in life. And that's the focus, F-O-C-U-S. Finding ourselves creates unlimited success. Focus on you and let other people come into focus. It doesn't eliminate other people. It makes it more clear who they represent in your life and how you should use one another. While my mother was in the hospital, as much as her health was my concern, I had to focus on my well-being, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Because my role in my family was taking on new shape as the doctor presented options that shifted the responsibility of our parent-child relationship. I had to flash back to how comforting it had always been for me to see Leah's face. Leah's my mother's nickname. I had to flash, so let me get that sentence again. I had to flash back to how comforting it had always been for me to see Leah's face, to be that comfort for her, as well as my sister and brothers during this opening stage of denial we were experiencing through her mortality. You see, what happened was when my mother when she got diagnosed with liver cancer, and that she would be dying when she went into the stage that they call comfort of life, something like that. But they give you morphine because you're on a timeline where you're going to be dying within the next 2 or 3 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks. And all she was worried about while she was in the hospital is she wanted to get home because she wanted to die in her house and in her bed. And so I'm in the hospital with her, and she says to me, she said, I want to go home. And I looked at her and I said, well, you know what? They call funerals homegoing services. So you're going to need to be a little bit more clear. She cracked her laugh. So now everybody that came into the hospital, they come up to her and she said, I want to go to 3170 Broadway, apartment 5 high. And everybody was like, what is she talking about? And then when I told her, I said, Porter, you are so stupid. But the key is you have to be stupid to get through this life sometimes. And a lot of times you've allowed people to call you stupid and you've let it hurt you instead of recognizing that what they were doing was admitting that they didn't have the vision that you had. They didn't have the same personality and the belief that you have in your system that could make you overcome stuff. Because when you overcome stuff, you have to be stupid. You have to be willing to say, this is not something that's going to bother me. Because usually the things that bother us are the things in our history where we recognize, oh, wow, I can't get over this. And then we give up. What I do when I look back, because I look at my track record and I laugh at my lack record. I look at what has happened to me and the stuff that I have gotten over that I didn't think I'd be able to get over. So the chapter will go on to talk about how I dealt with my mother's death. But more importantly, how I had to deal with my new life. And what I had to do, because I call it occupational hazard, right? When she died, I was the one in the room with her who got to see take her last breath. We tend to hear about people dying, but how often have we seen someone die? See, in the movies, when they die, they say die, and they go, but, my mother we were talking, and she was spitting up the morphine, which the doctor had told us she needed to do to get that out of her system. So at first it started out as a great episode. I'm like, great, she's getting it out of her system. She's going to be fine. And it started coming out faster and faster. And it went from us me and the room attendant, it went from us just bringing a bucket for her to spit into to us just putting the towel there and let that absorb it. And then suddenly she just said, make it stop. And she stopped. And I'm thinking, oh, cool. It's done, like her face didn't twist or nothing, the blood didn't drip out her mouth, but she was done. And the last thing she said was, make it stop. And who was she talking to? She was talking to God. At first I thought she was talking to me, because as I was looking at her go through this situation, I was thinking that she was looking at me and asking me to do something that I had absolutely no power to do, and that was to save her life. But of course I believed it. Because I was in denial myself. I said, you know what, I can save my mother. I've seen it done on TV all the time. They do it in the movies. And so you go through that stage when you have to deal with that. But when she said, make it stop, first thing I did, I felt for her pulse. Didn't feel a pulse. In denial, I said, hey, I ain't a doctor. I ain't Doc Honeycutt. I don't know what a pulse feels like. So I felt for her heartbeat. Didn't feel it. I said, hey, I don't always feel my heartbeat. So I called my sister. I said, you know what? I think Mommy's dead. She said, you think? So she told me to call the doctor's office. I called them. They called back. They told me to put the mirror under her nose, and that if I didn't see fog, then we could pronounce her dead. So that was 10 minutes later. So for 10 minutes, I was in denial. But once we saw that she actually wasn't gone, it was like, okay, now what do I do? Occupational hazard. I'm a motivational speaker. I tell people to get over stuff. And I tell people to fight their way through. So now I had to fight my way through. So what came to my mind was, God chose me to be here for this moment. Because no other member of my family could have handled it. We had just switched out the watch between me and my sister about an hour ago. My sister would have lost her mind if it had to be her. So I handled it. And it became my job to now tell all the members of my family about our mother's last minute, her last 5 minutes, her last half an hour, her last hour. See, that's what you want to do when you're dealing with tragedy. I see they like it too. But that's what you want to do when you're dealing with tragedy, is backtracking. Because God has not made a single mistake. One of the books I wrote is called I Found Out I'm Dying. It's about the fact that physically we're all dying from the day we're born. Get over it. And you can backtrack your demise as being from the day you were conceived. Because from the day you were conceived, you started going into the physical practice of perhaps and hopefully dying from natural causes. So once we really recognize that we won't be here one day, we're not talking about dying, we're talking about living. Because we're finding ways to enjoy life. So that's what that chapter will help you do, is talk about, get through some things, maybe some death in your life that you can handle better. The next chapter, dealing with parenting. What I had done, I moved to Chicago in 1988, and I decided I'd coach community league basketball. I said, well, I'm new to the area, they probably won't trust me with their kids, so the first year I'll just referee, and then I'll coach, maybe starting the next year. So what I did was, I got in there, and I'm just going to read this to you, okay? The perfect parent chosen child handbook is read in opposite directions from back to front and front to back, 40 pages long, all blank. Because there's no such thing as a perfect parent, there's no such thing as a perfect child. I wrote this monologue 10 years after one of my parenting lessons. It's called How Slowly We Forget. Hey ref, how'd you like a ticket to the game we're watching? Hey coach, I didn't pay $50 to watch my kid sit on the bench. Now let me get you to the meat of that chapter, because these were the things I was hearing. And as I made wrong call after bad call after missed call, I saw myself become the child. Scolded, pressured, pushed to fill the shoes of an older brother or sister, parent, relative, or friend. The teenager, conscious of my appearance, questioning my decisions, wondering who am I? And finally the adult, cautious with failing eyesight, hearing, reflexes, and stamina. Well, after 2 weeks and 6 games on that roller coaster, I decided to start coaching a year earlier. And in week number 3, I began my coaching by talking to the coach from each team at center court. Gentlemen, I understand that each of you has a son in this program. In fact, I'm sure you're volunteering to be visibly an active part in your son's development as a ball player. I, on the other hand, do not have a son in this program. And am really doing this because I, too, want to see your son develop as a fundamentally sound ball player. I won't get every call right. I'll call what I see. And I don't have a problem with your asking for an explanation to my call. But what I need you to be conscious of is the fact that if all you do is scream and refute my calls, you only teach your son, not to mention his teammates and the fans, that the ref is never right. Thus, he'll grow up resenting authority and being clueless as to why he doesn't make the school team. Now, how often, when I make the right call, do you look down the bench and explain to the guys why that was a good call? and why they should be conscious of not making the same mistake. If you can't explain my call, I will gladly stop the game and do so for you, your players and your fans. But I'm not here to have you abuse me game after game. Cool? That was in 1989. And starting that day, I began to hear, excuse me, ref, would you watch number 5? He's pushing my guy. Or, ooh, Sporty, didn't he walk? And I'd say, okay, I'll keep an eye out of him. Or, yeah, wow, I can't believe I missed that call. You see, grown-ups, you sometimes forget that you haven't always been so coordinated, responsible, or knowledgeable. I would have loved to stand here and tell you about one life I touched, but I have too many, and I've been touched by too many. So have you. I don't ask that you stop focusing on your child. I remind you that your child is not the only one focused on you. You're the ref, the coach. You are the glue. And don't look now, but you're sitting next to, in front of, behind, and among someone who's got just as much stick to it as you. So when you're dealing with parenting, recognize that you are either the parent or you're being parented, but you're always the child. No matter how old you get, there's a lesson that you can learn. Dealing with passion. And you know what? I'm going to save this one, the next two, for next week, because I want to spend a little bit more time just making sure that you get what I'm talking about in terms of the focus. And I didn't even mention the faith that's required. Faith, F-A-I-T-H, feeling as if there's hope. Recognizing that the only thing you cannot do is give up. And when you look at your life, you have to recognize that you haven't given up. You've been through a lot of stuff, but have you stopped and given yourself credit for it? We spend so much time beating ourselves down because what we do is we're listening to other people beat us down, and we're listening to the pity party that justifies our failure. People will maximize your failure, minimize your progress. But if you continue to listen to people and then you suddenly say, well, you know what, I'm surrounded by so much negativity. But think about it. We choose who we're surrounded by. So if you're surrounded by negativity, you've chosen to be surrounded by negativity. And that's not the kind of stuff that you're supposed to be made of. If you focus on who you are, you'll start to see how important you are. Once you see how important you are, you'll bring the right people into your life, because opposites don't attract. Like attracts like. And as you start to bring the right people in your life, you start to deal with death in a different way, because you're now recognizing that you're dealing with life. God put us here to die. He didn't put us here to say, you are going to live forever, go and prosper. He said, there will be a day where I'll be calling you home. Do you ever notice how even the crooks go to heaven? When we go to the funeral, everybody's going to heaven. Okay? So the thing is, if you're on that list, well, why not enjoy the fact that you're living this life? Everything that you've done in your life so far has been right, because it's right for you based on the information you had to make the decision. When we learn better, we know better. And I might not have said that right, but you know what I mean. But when we know better, we do better. And that's what we have to really get focused on. Don't focus on the mistakes you made. You've made a lot of mistakes, but you've made a lot of good decisions. You've made at least one more good decision than you've made a bad one, or else you wouldn't be here today. And you didn't necessarily make that decision in your adult life. You might have made it when you were 3 or 4 years old, decided not to play in the toilet, fall in, and bump your head. We've got to spend more time recognizing that stuff is always going to happen. But the most important thing we want to look at is how we're going to handle that stuff. There's a principle, it's an ABC principle that people have used to talk about attitudes, and I've heard it also used to talk about counseling. And it's action, belief, and consequences. I've taken the ABC and changed it to allow, brave, and choices. Because we have to allow ourselves to grow. You have to have the right attitude that allows the people to come into your life. You see, we hear the same messages over and over again. It's not until our messenger delivers it that we get it. So how can you choose your messenger? By allowing yourself to be open to the message. The B is for brave, because each one of us needs to recognize that we do the bravest thing we can do every single day. Lay down and go to sleep. Because you have no guarantee that you're going to wake up. So if you're brave enough to close your eyes and go to sleep, how could your faith tell you that something else is, that you can't overcome something else? You're a lot braver than you give yourself credit for. And you're certainly more brave than other people are giving you credit for. And that's why they see us for choices. We make a lot of good choices in our life. Start counting your choices. Start get rid of that get rid of that lack record and focus on that track record. Because there's something that you thought you couldn't do and you were able to do it. Next week I'm going to finish talking about stuff. By then, maybe you have bought the book. And then we can do it like a book club where you can even email me, text me, and tell me that that you'd like me to really emphasize a certain point, because that's the key. When you see an author, we're creative people, and when we put stuff in writing, we can only put a part of the story. You know how they say there's three sides to every story: mine, yours, and the truth. Well, the key is that we've got to recognize that when we put something together, we can only put a part of what we feel into that writing. And as we talk about it, that's how we bring the other part out. Because it goes from what I share to what you believe to what we can discuss. So when you hear authors, when you hear talk show hosts, when you hear people on our network say, send us your questions, I'd like to know what you'd like to talk about or hear about, what they're saying is, I'd like to extend my blessing to you. Don't you know how blessed you are? Haven't you agreed to allow yourself to be blessed with your bravery and your choices, but more importantly, with your focus and faith? Stuff will always happen. Last thing I want to tell you is something I shared today with our group, and it's because it's one of my favorite beliefs and one that we tend to forget, and that is the moral of the Three Little Pigs. The moral of the story with the Three Little Pigs is not about how strong of a house you build. It's about the fact that the storm is coming. And when that storm ends, there's going to be another storm. And if you look back, you've been through a lot of storms. Stop letting people tell you that you don't have the right raincoat. You can get through every single storm that comes your way because your track record says that you've handled a lot of stuff. Remember, life is about going from one puzzle to the next. You're either a small, medium, or large piece of the puzzle in your family, social, and business relationships. Yet, no matter what size piece of the puzzle you see yourself as, without you, that puzzle is called incomplete. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your puzzle. Recognize that I have every intention to be a large piece because I know that you are also a large piece. But even with the puzzle, have patience because you may be the middle part of the puzzle and you have to wait till the edges come together. God bless you. We'll see you next week on Glue Wednesday with Sporty King. Ciao. Oh.